overemphasis on the Islamic ideology, I think is something that a lot of Pakistanis are now realizing has created less advantage for Pakistan and caused more disadvantages for Pakistan. Because while in the beginning it sounded good, we are all one because we are Muslims and we will live by the principles of Islam, the second stage was far more difficult. What are the principles of Islam that we will live by? Who is a true Muslim? What kind of Islamic rules shall we make for the country? So Pakistan started out in 1947 with Shias and Ahmadis and Sunnis and Wahhabis and Ahl Hadith and Ismailis and Bohras and all kinds of religious denominations that considered themselves Muslim wanting Pakistan. And yet within a few years the debate had started. Should the Ahmadis who believe that there is a prophet who came after Prophet Muhammad be considered Muslims for legal purposes? That debate lasted for almost 20 years before it was resolved through a constitutional amendment. The only country of the world's 193 sovereign states that are members of the United Nations that has actually amended its constitution to decide whether a particular sect was part of a particular religion or not. Now, every now and then, I'm sure, since I see such bright faces in this audience, I'm sure many of you have many interesting friends in this country, because after all, a significant portion of the American electorate is evangelical Christian. If you run into some of them, they will tell you such and such Catholics, not really Christian, Mormons, far away from being Christian, etc., etc. You probably hear those arguments. Similarly, within Judaism, there are those who would argue that Reformed Jews are no longer Jews, or that a certain sect of the Hasidim is not as Jewish as they ought to be, etc. But here's the difference. None of it finds its way into legislation or constitutional law. In case of Pakistan, the Ahmadis, who consider themselves a sect of Islam, a Sunni offshoot, they have been legally declared non-Muslims for the purpose of the constitution and law of Pakistan. And every Pakistani who applies for a passport as a Muslim, because your passport has to indicate whether you're a Muslim or not in case you want to go and do pilgrimage to Makkah, for example, in your lifetime, every Pakistani is required to sign a declaration that disavows Ahmadi beliefs and says that I do not consider Ahmadis Muslims, I do not consider their prophet an actual prophet, and I consider all those who believe that he's a prophet to be imposters and unbelievers. And only then can you get a passport as a regular Muslim. Why do I cite this? I cite this because these are the kind of anomalies that have been created by trying to create a more Islamic state. Instead of uniting, it has become a divisive factor. So now that the Ahmadis have been declared, now a new debate has started. Should the Shias be considered Islamic for the purpose of the constitution? And there's a movement in Pakistan called the Sipahi Sahaba, which demands that Shias too should be declared. So that basically, in pure demographic terms, scares me. Because in the end, if somebody is sitting in judgment on somebody else as, who is a true Muslim or not, we will end up actually diminishing the number of Muslims in Pakistan rather than increasing it. Lastly, creating a confessional state will always result in sectarian and ideological conflict. There's a famous figure of speech about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, kind of religious argument. Similar arguments exist in Islam. Did Prophet Muhammad have a shadow or not? If he was made of the light of God, did he have a shadow or not? There are two Sunni sects that disagree on this. But should that be a matter to be discussed in Parliament, or should that be something that should influence legislation? Does it have any relevance for modern life? Does it have any relevance for increasing Pakistan's exports, increasing the number of Pakistan's educated people, improving Pakistan's skilled labor force, making Pakistan competitive in modern terms? So, the reimagining of Pakistan would have to involve also giving up this ideological paradigm.